when we've got something like this. If I may ask, if I'm saying find the coordinates of D, what is D on these graphs? What is this point D? What do you call it? X-intercept, Y-intercept, point of intersection. What is it?
Y-intercept.
Why do you say it's the Y-intercept?
Because it's on the Y-axis.
Thank you. Thank you. What about C? What is this C?
Y-intercept.
I missed that part. I didn't hear it clearly.
Y-intercept.
Okay, also because it's on the Y-axis, right?
Yes.
What about these 2 points? What do we call those 2 points?
X-intercepts.
Why would we say it's X-intercepts?
They are on the X-axis.
Okay, if someone can remind me, what did we say about the Y value on the X-axis? What did we say about the X value on the X-axis? I mean the X value on the Y-axis.
Let the X be 0.
Okay, let X be 0. If we are looking for the X-intercept and the Y-intercept. I agree that. But if we are not looking for them, what do we know about the X-axis and the Y-axis? On the X-axis, the value of Y is 0. Yes, I would understand you answered, but the way you answered is as if I've got an equation and I want to solve. But what if I don't have an equation? On the X-axis, the value of Y is 0. On the Y-axis, the value of X is 0. Can we make sure that we master that part? Let's make sure of that part. What are the coordinates of this point? This point is the origin. What are the
0.
X is 0 at that point and Y is 0 at that point. X is 0 and Y is 0. If I may ask again, what is this point? X-intercept, Y-intercept, point of intersection.
Point of intersection.
Why do you say it's the point of intersection?
Because it's where the graphs cross or meet each other.
Okay, even at this point, if we check, the graphs are touching each other here and crossing each other. Okay, let's go back to what we did. We spoke about the domain, we spoke about the range. Spoke about the domain, we spoke about the range. If you can allow me here, can I just do it like this? Let's talk about the straight line. I just want to do it like this. Okay, this is you are in class. They say draw a graph, a straight line graph. And then there is you drawing the straight line graph. Cartesian plane, x-axis, y-axis. And then this is you drawing the graph now. And then you draw your straight line graph. Is it decreasing or it's increasing?
It's decreasing.
Okay. Konje, what happens? Why should the graph decrease? What happens so that the graph can decrease?
The gradient is going to be negative so that the graph can decrease.
Okay. We've got y is equals to mx plus c. That is the equation. So in the case of this example, the gradient is less than 0, meaning the gradient is negative. Now, we've got that graph which is decreasing, and then if I may ask, because there is this arrow here that is saying the graph is continuing, and there is this arrow here that is saying the graph is continuing. This is you in your book. This is your whole page, and you've drawn the graph in the full page. Where does this graph start? Where does it end? Remember, when we draw on when we write in your booklet, If I'm right, guys, this is you in your booklet. You are requested to write classwork. Most learners will start this side, classwork. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes. So most of the time we start on the left, or I can say always we start on the left. And in the book, whoever designed the book, they've drawn a red line there. Then you know that you start next to that red line. So we know that when we write, we start from the left to the right. So when we interpret the graph, we'll also start from the left and then we go to the right. Start from the left and then go to the right. Now, starting on the left and going to the right, where does this graph start? Anyone? Talk to
On
me.
the left side.
Yes,
Sir,
I'm 100% sure with you. I'm with you there on the left side. But where? On which number?
sir, can I say from negative infinity to, or from positive infinity to negative infinity?
I would still ask a question. If I agree with you, why do you say that?
Sir, because we don't know where the graph starts and where it ends.
Thank you. Because of that, now, if I'm talking about the domain, remember what I said about the domain. I said to make your life easy, because the graph is going to continue ganjalo, ganjalo, ganjalo. Start from the x-axis, move to the graph. If you can touch the graph, it means the graph is defined at that point. It's there. You start from the x-axis, move to the graph. If you can touch the graph is available at that point. Even if you check here, I move there, I'm touching the graph. So the question is, up to which point am I going to keep touching the graph if I move from the x-axis? I'm gonna touch the graph as long as the graph is available. But now we don't know where does the graph start, we don't know where does it end. It means as I keep touching the graph is available at any point from negative infinity to positive infinity, looking at the x values. So to cover all the values of x, to cover all the values of x, I'm saying x is the element of real numbers. But you guys, when you're alone seated there explaining to your friend, you can explain the way Zwanga, I think it's Zwangane, if I heard the voice correctly. Zwanga is you?
Yes, sir.
Yes. You can explain the way Zwanga is explaining, to say starting from negative infinity up to positive infinity, so that they would understand, okay, infinity, they know it's somewhere where they don't know. So if it's negative infinity, it means somewhere on the negative numbers, and then positive infinity means somewhere on the positive numbers. Okay, so I can write it like this: x lies between negative infinity and positive infinity, if I can put it like that. X lies between negative infinity and positive infinity. Or I can write it like this: x is the element of negative infinity up to positive infinity. But guys, I don't want to lie, I don't prefer to write this. Can write like this. I just prefer to say I'm including all the values. So the best way is to say x is the element of real numbers. Done. That is your what? Your domain. And now when you wrote like this, you can't get confused of the signs. Which sign should I write? Which bracket should I write? No. Does it make sense so far? The domain. Mind you, I'm repeating what I did. Okay. Let's talk about the range. Let's talk about the range. The range. And then we are going to move from the y-axis. Still the same story. Move from the y-axis, touch the graph. For as long as I'm gonna touch the graph, it means the graph it's possible there, it's available. It's doable, it's defined. Okay, so at this point the graph is defined. It means y corner land. At this point,
So
yes, please.
if I'm moving from y and I can't find the graph, it means it's not there.
Yes.
It can't be defined.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So, and then it means whatever that is limiting you, you must mention that I'm limited by this. Okay. I'm still going to explain to the parabola. Maybe it will make sense to your question. Okay. So, I can move at any point. Even here at the end here, I'm still going to touch the graph. Even here, as long as I can move from the y-axis, because I'm talking about the range, I'm touching the graph. So I can touch the graph at any point, either on the positive side or on the negative side. So where am I going to stop touching the graph if I move from the x-axis? The answer is you will never. Why? Because the graph does not stop. So it means the graph is existing on this line. There is all the y values, the negative y values and the positive y values. So my range would be y is the element of real numbers. Remember, you can say y lies between negative infinity up to positive infinity. You can still say y is the element of negative infinity up to positive infinity. Okay, the brackets, I made mistake. But my guys, I prefer to write like this. If we talk about x element of real numbers and y element of I prefer to write like that, because this negative infinity and all that, people end up making mistakes, not knowing which. You see, I made a mistake already by writing a square bracket. So someone will be writing a square bracket and a normal bracket, and then to avoid that, I'm just gonna write it like that. Did it make sense, the straight line, the way I'm explaining the domain and the range?
Yes.
Okay. If it doesn't make sense, guys, I will explain. I will repeat. I want you to master this thing. When your teacher explains in the class, I want you to be the first one to understand and explain to others to be sure that you understand. Okay, let's say now, since we're talking about two graphs here, a straight line and a parabola, let's talk about this parabola, the very same parabola that is up there. Let's say we talk about that. So the parabola graph is moving like that. This is you drawing in your book. So you've filled up the book. The whole book is filled up. So I can still draw it like this, by the way. Still the same thing. I can still draw like this. Still the same thing. I can still draw it like that. Actually, let's just leave it like this. Veil. Let's just leave it like this so that we can explain better. Let's just say this is our graph. The arrow is there, and then the arrow is there. What does the arrow mean? Continue, continue, continue forever and ever. Amen. So the graph is continuing. Up to which point, we don't know. But it's going to continue. I wanted to do it like this. Let me try for the last time. Yeah, at least. Yeah, that is the same thing though. So there is my graph then. There is my parabola graph. And then if I remember very well, that was negative 2, that was positive 2, and that was negative 4. And the arrow says continue, continue, continue drawing, continue up to where? We don't know, forever and ever. Amen. Okay, so we're continuing like that. There is our graph there. Now, if I want to check, remember this is the y-axis, this. I want to check the domain. I want to check the range. That is my y-axis there. Remember that, guys. I want to check the domain, I want to check the range. Where does this graph start? I said if you want to check the domain, start from the x-axis, move to the graph. And if you move to the graph and touch the graph, it means the graph is defined at that point. I can move from the x-axis and then I move to the graph. I'm still touching the graph, by the way. I move from the x-axis, I'm still touching the graph. I move from the x-axis, still touching the graph. Move from the x-axis, touching the graph. So at any point on the x-axis, I'll always touch the graph. What does that mean? Okay, again, where does this graph start? I don't know. Where does it end? I don't know. I mean on the x-axis. I'm talking about the x-axis. Since I don't know where does it start and I don't know where does it end, it means it starts at negative infinity and it ends at positive infinity. It means for this graph, if I'm talking about the domain for this graph, I'm just going to say x is the element of real numbers, because I'm including all the negative numbers and all the positive numbers. X is the element of real numbers. Can I explain the range now? To answer someone who was saying, is it defined or not? The range. I'm moving from the y-axis. I must touch the graph. I'm moving from the y-axis. If I move from the y-axis at any point here, I will touch the graph either this side or that side. I don't know what happened there. Let me remove that. At any point, if I move from the y-axis, I will touch the graph. If I move this side, I will also touch the graph. At any point, I will touch the graph there. If I move from the y-axis, I will still touch the graph. It means as long as I'm going up, I'll keep touching the graph. Even if I'm going down, keep touching the graph. I keep touching the graph. I'm still touching the graph even here. But if I may ask you guys, I'm gonna use a different color here so that you guys can tell me. Am I still touching the graph here?
No,
Okay.
no, sir.
So the graph is not defined at this point. Ayikho and ngeke ibe khona. Ayikho lana. So it means my graph is limited at this point. Why am I saying that? It cannot pass that point. So if I'm talking about the range, I'm talking about where that point is up to wherever I don't know. Wherever I don't know. If I start from this point and I'm reading the numbers, if I start from this point and going up, am I going to the bigger than numbers or I'm going to the smaller than numbers? -4. Am I going to bigger than -4 or smaller than -4?
Bigger than negative.
That is why I'm saying my range will be y is bigger or equal to -4. Anything below -4, the graph does not exist, is not defined. That is why in the case of this example, y is greater or equal to -4. Now you are going to answer this one for me to help me to understand. You are going to answer this one for me. I'll do that, and then I'll do this. And then let's write the numbers. The numbers will be -3, +3, and then +9. If I may ask, what is the domain of this graph? The one I've just drawn now. What is the domain? Guys, talk to me. I'm going to redraw. Maybe if I can just redraw like this, maybe it's gonna make sense. I'm gonna go like that. I'm gonna go like that. I'm still going to ask the same question. Let's say this is -3, this is positive 3. Then I remove the black one. Maybe the black one is the problem. Removed. Out. The domain of this graph. What is the domain of this graph?
I think it's x is the element of real numbers.
100% correct. X is the element of real numbers. At any point, for as long as the graph is there, I will keep, if I move from the x-axis, I will keep touching the graph. Move from the x-axis, I will keep touching the graph. I move from the x-axis, I will touch the graph. I move from the x-axis, I will touch the graph. For as long as I'm going to do that, so it means x is the element of real numbers from negative infinity to positive infinity. That is the domain. What is the range of this graph? What is the range of this graph?
Y is less than or equal to 9.
Y is less or equals to 9. Done. Y is less or equals to 9. Guys, if you are going to say you've got a problem with the story about domain and range, I don't know anymore. I don't know. I think I explained enough. I explained more than enough. And that should make you understand better. Can we go back to the drawing? Let's go back to the drawing and focus on f of x multiplied by g of x. What do you remember me saying? Let's talk about this. F of x is less than 0. Remember, f of x is y. So when you explain to someone who doesn't know math or doesn't understand these things, and you want that person to understand, and they get f of x is less than 0, what are you going to say? What does it mean in your own understanding, or in simple terms? What does it say?
You're going to say y is smaller than 0.
Okay, and we need to remember that all the numbers that are smaller than 0, they are what? Negative numbers. So the best way is just to say y is negative. Now the problem is, where is y negative? Where is y negative? On the Cartesian plane. On the Cartesian plane. Where is y negative? Someone
Quadrant 3 and 4.
Thank you. In quadrant number 3 and quadrant number 4. Quadrant number 3 and quadrant number 4. Y is negative. But now, when we answer the question that says, for which values of x? For which values of x? It is saying where. Basically, if you say it in your own understanding. For which values of x is f of x less than 0. It is saying, where does the graph of f start being less than 0? Where does it end? Where is y negative? We know that it is negative in quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. But what is the value of x in quadrant 3 where the graph is start to be negative? What is the value of x in quadrant 4 where the graph ends being negative? If you understand, guys, the graph start being negative at this point. I'm talking about y. Y is negative here, y is negative, y is negative, y is negative, y is negative. Am I right? Yes or no? Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But now, to answer the question that is saying for which values is f of x less than 0, where is y negative? Y is negative whereby x is between negative 2 and positive 2. Y is negative. Any number here. y is negative, y is negative, y is negative, y is negative, y will keep being negative. Between these two numbers, y will always be negative. I'm just trying to repeat. Does it make sense so far? My people are quiet.
Yes.
I just assume that, yeah. Okay. Now, what if the question was saying f of x is greater than 0? It means it's saying, where is the graph of f? Where is y positive? Greater than 0 means positive. Where is y positive? Where does it start being positive? I believe by now all of us, we know that the y is positive in this two quadrant. Positive. But if you check, what is the x value where the y starts to be negative? Y is negative starting from this point up to whatever number that we don't know. Y is positive from this point up to whatever number that we don't know. So if we yes,
Isn't that where x is negative or positive?
no, the answer is x, but you're looking at y. The answer is x. Answer is x. So starting from this x value up to whatever that we don't know, the y value will always be positive for as long as I'm going up from that 2. Even from here, if I start from this 2 going up, the graph will always be going up. The graph will always be, the y value will always be positive. If I'm asking you what is the y value here, positive. If I'm asking you what is the y value here, positive. What is the y value here, positive. But you are looking at x where y is positive. You are looking at x where y is positive. So at this x, up to whatever x that we don't know, the y will always be positive. But when we go to that side, are we going to greater than -2 or we're going to less than -2?
Less than.
So my answer will be x is less than -2. Because there are two answers, I'll write or. Since I'm jumping there, I'm jumping in the space, I will write or. My or doesn't look like or. And I'm looking on the other side where there is 2. I start from 2 and I draw the graph going up. It means my y value will always be positive. So starting from x is 2 up to whatever number of x that we don't know. So we just talk about all the values of x that are bigger than 2. Y is negative. The answer is x, but to get x you look at y. Can yourselves do the ones for let me write with a black pen there. I want to talk about this before. Yesterday the time chowed us, guys, so I don't want to make a mistake of not talking about this. You will do the g of x is less than 0. You'll also do g of x is greater than 0. You'll do that. Remember, the answer is x. I'm looking for x, but x is guided by y. Now, what about whereby we're saying f of x multiplied by g of x greater than 0 or less than 0? F of x multiplied by g of x greater than 0 or less than 0. This thing is saying y multiplied by y. The answer should be positive. Y multiplied by y, the answer is positive. So where am I going to multiply y and get positive? So the last time I said, and I repeat myself, the last time I said, let's write this. In this quadrant, my y value is positive. I'm going to write positive, positive, positive throughout that graph. Even in this side, my y value is still positive, 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 positive. Going up, it's still positive, my y value. But to avoid confusing myself, let me just move to the next quadrant, 3 and 4. My y value is negative now. Negative, negative, negative. My y value is negative here. Negative. Okay. Guys, I feel like my explanation will be messed up. Can I change the color here so that you can understand? Are we still there, by the way?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. If we're still there, negative, 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 negative. I'll do this one also. Negative, negative, because in this quadrant, this graph is negative. Then we'll do the other one for positive on the other quadrant. Quadrant, positive, because in this quadrant, y. I'm representing y, guys, not just representing any number. Y is positive. Y is positive. Now, let's try to remember, what is negative multiplied by negative? Hello?
Positive.
And what is a positive number multiplied by a positive number?
Positive.
What is a negative number multiplied by a positive number?
Negative.
And what is a positive number multiplied by a negative number?
Negative.
Thank you. The first one, the answer is positive. The second one, the answer is positive. The next one, the answer is negative. The last one, the answer is negative. If we can remember this, then let's check. If I take any value that comes into my head here, obviously that value is positive, and I multiply with the value that is here. Well, I'm multiplying two graphs. That's why I'm saying y of g multiplied by y of f. So I multiply with this number here. Am I going to get a positive number or I'm going to get a negative number? Hello? Take a value here that comes into your head. I don't know what is that value. Multiply with this value here. A y value. Y value. Y value is positive here. Take the y value here. Multiply with the y value here. Are you going to get a positive number or a negative number?
Positive number.
Positive number. Can we do that up to here and check? Up to here. Obviously, this one will be 0. This one will give us 0. But what about here? I take a number here and multiply by a number here. Am I going to get positive or negative?
Positive.
Okay. So if you check, for as long as I move from this side to whatever side, whatever number, I'll keep getting what? I'll keep getting a positive number. Now, let's move on again. If I take a number here and I multiply with a number here, am I going to get a positive number or a negative number?
Negative.
Negative.
Okay. If I talk about this part, I take a number there and multiply here. Am I going to get a positive number or a negative number?
Negative numbers.
What about this part? If I take this point and I take this number here, any number, and I multiply with this number here, am I going to get a positive or a negative?
Negative.
Okay. Now, guys, if you check, my pen is on strike. If you check, starting from this point, going to everything that side, for as long as the graph is existing, when I multiply, I'll always get what? I messed up my writings here. I'll always get a negative number. So, starting from this point, what is the x value at that point? Negative 2. To where? To all the numbers that are bigger than negative 2. So all the values of x which are greater than negative 2. When I multiply f of x and g of x, I get a negative number. And if I start from this point and I go to that side, when I take the value of f of x and multiply by g of x, I get a positive number. Kandi, what is this question saying? This question is saying multiply the two graphs and get the negative number. Where do you start getting negative number? Where do you end getting a negative number? Someone to help me with the answer here. How am I going to write the answer? Guys, time. Wait for
Sir,
now.
please repeat the question, sir.
My question is, since we know that this part and going that side, when I multiply, I get a negative number. And from okay, I want to thicken my color. From this part going that side, I always get a positive number. How do I write the answer to this question? That is my question. How do I write the answer to that question? I'm going to write my answer as x is less than negative 2. If I move from negative 2 and I'm going to the left hand side of negative 2, every number I take, I will keep getting a positive number. So to answer that question is x is less than negative 2. That is the answer to f of x multiplied by g of x is greater than 0. I showed an example to say that means y multiplied by y is positive. I'm going to pause and wait for a question. As I'm trying to clarify. Yes.
Where did we get negative 2?
Yeah, guys, where did you get negative 2?
From point B.
From point B, ne? The x value at negative 2. I mean at B is negative 2. The x value at that point. Oh, ish, guys, I'm rubbing these things and they were going to help us in the next question. But does it make sense so far, guys?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's talk about this one. What if I'm saying f of x is greater than g of x? Guys, if I explained this and you say you understand, next time I'm just going to change the sign and write less than. You can't say I don't understand. If I explained this and I'm writing greater than, next time I'm going to say less than. So you should understand. It should make sense. So I'm saying, okay, can I do it like this? I think this one will make my life easy if I say g of x. Can I say g of x? Or no problem, let me just say f of x, but I'm gonna say less than. Let me say less than. F of x is less than g of x. Anyone who remembers, what does it mean in your own understanding? What does it mean? Let's start with your own understanding. What do you think that question means? Pella is still the same question. For which values of x? Remember that, ne? It's still the same question. For which values of x? What does it mean? Y is less than y. Pella, f of x is y. G of x is y. So basically it's y less than y. What does it mean? Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
will it be x is less than -2 or x is greater than 0?
I want to say yes, I want to say no, but I need to understand why do you say that?
Because I'm looking at the graph.
Yes. I'm trying to look also and see what you're seeing. Okay. Is it Baloy who's talking?
Yes.
Okay, Baloy. This is what I would say when I explain to learners to understand. I'm saying, looking at this sign, less than, or maybe greater than. When we say less than, it means the graph is moving below. Now I'm comparing two graphs. Ne? Here I'm comparing, here I'm multiplying two graphs, but here I'm comparing two graphs. What am I comparing on those two graphs? I'm comparing the y values. So greater than, it means starting from which point to which point is the y value of f smaller than the y value of g. That is what the question is saying. So starting from which point? If we check the y value of f from this point, the y value of f, I mean of g, is positive. Am I right? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the y value, okay, is positive in this quadrant, but now what do I want to say? I want to say it's bigger. It's bigger. The y value at this point is bigger than the y value at this point. Am I right?
Yes.
Because if the y value here is 4, it means here the y value can be 2. So this y value here is bigger, and then this y value here is smaller. And then if I move on, the y value here is bigger than the y value here. Even here, if we check, the y value here is bigger than the y value here. I'm saying bigger because you can see, if I start from top going up, it means the y value, how many minutes are we remaining with?
7.
Okay, I'm gonna drop the call in the next 3 minutes. The y value here is small than the y value here. The y value at this point is small than the y value at this point. So when they say you're comparing two graphs, the other graph is greater than the other graph or smaller than the other graph, what do you look? You look at where the graph is moving above, up to which point. Where does it start moving above? Up to which point? That is greater. Where does it start moving below? Up to which point? That is less. So less, we look at above, the graph above. Less, less, we look at the graph below. It's moving below. From which point to which point? Greater, we look at above. It's moving above. From which point to which point? Now if you check the f graph here, it's moving below. From that point, moving below up to that point. Am I right? Am I making a mistake or am I right?
You're right, sir.
Okay, thank you. If I am right, what is the x value at this point? -3. What is the x value at this point? +2. So between -3 and +2, -3 and +2, the f graph is small. Why am I saying it's small? It's moving below. Then how do I write the answer? I said between, so my answer must be in between. So I'm gonna remember the answer is x, but you are directed by y. So my answer is x because I said it's in between. So it's between -3 and +2. I'm gonna stop here. I think today I explained enough. I explained the domain and the range. I explained the f of x greater than 0. I explained multiply. I explained less, comparing the two graphs, less than or greater than. Okay, so you guys are going to answer that question 5.6 with understanding this time. And on top of that, this is what we'll be doing tomorrow. Make sure that you do this question, all of you. You can do it and send it to me tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'll manage to check, but maybe if you can do it now, I'll be able to check. Otherwise, I'm done. I'm gonna leave it here. Oh, let me leave it here. I'm done. As usual, I'm going to send this to you guys so that you can just double check whatever that we were doing here. I'm done, and thank you for your time. Till we meet again tomorrow. Bye bye.
Bye, sir.
Okay, let me just leave it there. Oh wow, I wanted to leave it there so that the question can appear. This question here, I'm gonna leave it there so that someone can see the question. Okay, yeah, I'll leave it there, and then bye bye on Facebook and bye bye on YouTube.